Welcome back. I'm Natalie Nidham, your host. You've heard of antioxidants, but what about a selective antioxidant that also boosts your resilience to stress? That's called molecular hydrogen. My guests are true experts in this subject, Alex Tarnava and Dr. Tyler LeBaron. Both are here to share why hydrogen might just be one of the most versatile tools in health optimization. Now, if you love what you hear, you'll want to visit inhale2.com/nat to learn more and to pre-order your very own Inhale 2 hydrogen machine. There's a very special discount, somewhere between 20 to 24%, depending on which option you choose on the pre-order. Now, this episode is brought to you by Stem Regen, Young Goose, and Oral Tide Pro, all with very special offers just for you, the listeners. Check out the show notes below for details and enjoy the show. And so here we are, live and in living color in Austin, Texas. Alex Tarnava and Dr. Tyler LeBaron, welcome to the podcast. It is a true pleasure to finally have you both in the same room together for this amazing conversation.
Thanks for having us.
So maybe what we should do for people who are listening, I should get each one of you to say something on your own. That way people can kind of hone in on your voice. So Alex, why don't you start us off and tell us something about yourself that is super surprising.
Super surprising, huh?
It doesn't have to be super surprising. Even any surprise will do.
Any surprise? I mean, that's tough because I'm willing to say basically anything about myself.
Well, how about we start with it's very unusual. Like we are the two Canadians in the room.
Yeah. I'm a Canadian. I mean, it's interesting because I do no business in Canada, but
you're Canadian.
I'm Canadian, so the hydrogen tablets were invented in Canada. Mm-hmm. My research and development was partially funded by grants from the Canadian government, right?
You heard it here first, guys. Thanks to the Canadian government, do we have access to those hydrogen tablets, which we will talk about in a little while. First, we're going to hear from Dr. Tyler LeBaron, who's going to A, voice print himself, and B, tell us a little bit about why I've got the pleasure of having you both here. This is exciting.
Hey. So I'm not Canadian.
No, he's not Canadian.
Yeah. No, and I did hear that when Canadians go out and sunbathe, they call themselves Canadian bacon. Is that true?
No. Actually, it's not, but nice try. Okay, we have our first joke.
Okay, first joke of the day.
First joke of the day.
That's my voice.
That's his voice. Yeah, okay, great. So this is amazing because, I mean, I've been trying to get Tyler on the podcast probably, I'm going to say for as long as the podcast has been around, because I heard you speak at a biohacking conference in Pasadena years ago. At least it must have been 8 years ago.
Yeah, probably.
It was when the biohacking movement was microscopic. Dave Asprey was just starting with his biohacking conferences then. And you were a speaker talking about hydrogen. And to this day, I remember some of your slides.
Oh, wow.
And I remember at the time going, oh, this stuff is amazing. And then I found Alex. Because Alex is the guy that, as you just said, created the open cup tablet technology, which was the first access that any of us really had to supplementing with hydrogen. And I've had you on the podcast at least twice, I want to say.
2 or 3 times.
And as a matter of fact, the company that you used to be associated with, Drink HRW, was the very first sponsor of my podcast.
Oh.
Ever. Like when I was just a little baby podcast. So.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I still am an advisor for Drink HRW.
You're not going to cut ties with.
Yeah, and actually Tyler is now too. He's on the scientific advisory board for Drink HRW. So I still have veto rights with them. They cannot launch a product unless I give my sign off.
It's good to be king, isn't it?
Yeah, but I have no day-to-day involvement, so I don't know what they're doing day-to-day.
It's all good. Sometimes it's better that way. All right, well, before we jump into anything really, truly specific, let's really dive into hydrogen, because that's what we're all here to learn about. You know, hydrogen being the smallest molecule on the periodic table. It's itty bitty.
Yeah, it's the smallest one, and I think it is fascinating. It's amazing that you remember that conversation, some of the slides that I did way back when.
The Parkinsonian rat.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that study in the Parkinson's disease model. But yeah, I started researching this back in 2009, so it's been 16 years now.
Wow.
And I started educating people, and most people, in those early years didn't want anything to hear about it. I started Molecular Hydrogen Institute in 2013 after I did research at Nagoya University. And actually, that's the same university who did that study, the Parkinson's disease study. So that was, my mentor, Dr. Kenji Ono, in his laboratory. We've since published a number of publications. But I came back, started Molecular Hydrogen Institute. .org, and people can go there and look at all the research and things we're doing.
It's an amazing website, you guys. Like, if you're looking for unbiased information on hydrogen, I mean, definitely a lot of the stuff you've pushed out, Alex, is unbiased. But if you really want something that's not affiliated with anything other than the pure, let's learn and dive into what this hydrogen molecule can possibly do, the Molecular Hydrogen Institute is the place you're going to go.
That's great, exactly. That's why I started it, because nobody knew anything about it.
No.
So I wanted to, so it's just a website. Now it is a science-based nonprofit, a 501c3, a tax exempt.
Nice.
And our whole focus is research, education, and awareness. And so we don't talk about products, there's no affiliations, it's just what does the research say, where are things at, people can get educated, we have certification courses and so on. And the fact is, there's still a lot of confusion out there about what hydrogen is. I mean, that's, like you said, right? Where does it come from? So you go back to the periodic table of elements and you see hydrogen is number one. Well, that is the hydrogen atom. And hydrogen atoms don't like to exist by themselves because it's just a proton and an electron.
Yeah.
And that's make it so it's, it wants to react with something else. And it does. Hydrogen reacts with pretty much everything. It can react with oxygen, and you can form water, because water is H2O. It can react with nitrogen, you form something like ammonia or amino acids. It can react with carbon to form, say, methane, C, carbon, right, CH4. It can react with pretty much everything. It can also react with itself, another hydrogen.
Yes.
And we can form a molecule of hydrogen, which we call H2, molecular hydrogen.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're talking about. This is this gas, which is very explosive. It's used as an alternative energy source and now as an alternative medicine.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. When you tell people about hydrogen, they're like they can't get their heads around it, right? They're like, so we are primarily made up of water, which means we're made up of a whole lot of hydrogen.
Yeah.
So when somebody tells you you're full of hot air, they might be right. Joke number 2, really bad. How did you ever figure out, like how did you open the door, crack this Pandora's box open that even would lead you to believe that there's something about this most foundational molecule, or the molecule. Let's talk about H2, right? That something about this most foundational molecule has importance to human health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is important we say, because it is the molecule we're talking about.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, because of course the body has with so much water and everything, there's a lot of hydrogen in the body.
Yeah.
But most,
as an atom.
But yeah, exactly. Most of those hydrogens are right in the molecular forms, like bond with oxygen, bond with carbon, bond with nitrogen, right? And that's not the same as the hydrogen gas.
Okay.
That we're talking about, the molecular hydrogen.
Okay.
And so the question then is, well, why would we even think that hydrogen gas would have any therapeutic benefits at all? And it actually comes from several different areas of research that all sort of converged in the past couple of decades. And there's different reasons why. Number one is because it was long observed that hydrogen gas is a natural byproduct of the human microbiome.
Great, I'm so glad you said that. Keep going.
So if you have a healthy microbiome, if you eat a healthy diet, you naturally produce hydrogen gas, and quite a bit of it. And so this has led to the question, does this mean that maybe hydrogen gas is beneficial for you? This is found in the research, years ago in the 60s, 70s, 80s, that there's suggestions that maybe hydrogen gas could potentially have some biological benefits. So that's one reason why it was thought about. Another reason is kind of more romantic, poetic, which is that hydrogen, as you said, is the first element in existence, the first on the periodic table of elements. It is the origins of the universe. It's the genesis of life. I mean, literally, in this deep sea hydrothermal vents, that's where scientists consider that probably life started, because hydrogen could donate its electrons and create this energy source, and now you can create organisms, so genesis of life right there, right?
Yeah.
And then it's also involved in the evolution of life itself, like the mitochondria, which uses hydrogen ions, and you have these hydrogosome complexes and all these bacteria that produce hydrogen gas, and we've sort of evolved totally to be with hydrogen gas in our entire lives. And so it almost makes sense that we've conserved some sort of sensitivity to molecular hydrogen. Right. And so that's another idea, because we see these other small gaseous molecules that do have biological effects, oxygen being one of them.
Yeah.
You have other things that are stronger, like nitric oxide.
Yeah.
A lot of gases are called signaling gases that have biological effects. Yeah, CO2, obviously huge,
is a
right?
Good news, bad news thing, but yeah.
Hydrogen sulfide is another big one.
Yeah.
Carbon monoxide, that's another big one, has very strong biological effects, therapeutic effects in small doses. The body actually naturally produces it as well. Of course, also very toxic, lethal if it's too much, right? So it makes sense just from this evolutionary perspective, well, maybe hydrogen gas also has benefits. And then another one, which is a very fascinating one, is back in the days people hear about alkaline ionized water.
Hey guys, I've created a free gift to thank you all for being here and for being a listener of this podcast. I've put together a list of my top 5 peptides. So all you have to do to get your copy of that is to go to natnidham.com/top 5. And that's it. Let's get back to the show.
So just on that alone, when you do electrolysis of water, you make hydrogen gas. That's the definition of electrolysis.
So you break the hydrogen away from the oxygen?
Exactly. The definition of electrolysis is the decomposition of water into hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. And it's turned out, we can talk about more, that hydrogen gas is the therapeutic agent in that water. And all of these different areas, from the basically the genesis of life concept, the fact that hydrogen gas is produced in the microbiome, the fact that hydrogen gas is produced during alkaline ionized water, all of these sort of converged in the past couple of decades. And now there's a ton of research showing that, there's substantiation and legitimacy to all of these thoughts. Hydrogen gas does have biological effects that are therapeutic.
Amazing. I love it. So, Alex, how did you get into this? You got into it at school. You came across it and dove in and got sucked down the rabbit hole. You're still down there somewhere. Yes. How about you?
So, long story short, I had a completely different business that gave me a lot of free time. This is 10, 11 years ago, I was competing in CrossFit, training in martial arts. I was exercising 4 to 6 hours a day, 6 times a week. And I got—
Sounds like healthy pursuits.
Yeah, I got hit with a mystery virus that caused an autoimmune-like response.
Right.
So I developed sudden onset narcolepsy. I was sleeping 16, 18 hours a day. My C-reactive proteins were 34 milligrams a liter. So had elevated 100 times.
So you're kind of on fire.
Yeah, and after a couple of months, I had central nervous system fatigue. I couldn't jump an inch off the ground, or do anything like explosive or reactive. After a couple of months, the dust kind of settled, and my CRP dropped to 3, which is still what you'd expect when you're sick, very sick.
Still high.
But I was left with polyarthritis. So I had osteoarthritis in 11 joints. This is my left shoulder. This is as high as it goes. And the doctor I was seeing in Canada at the time basically just told me I can never exercise again, and put me on 1,000 milligrams of naproxen a day, so super Aleve, and cortisone injections. And I knew at 29 that was not a viable course for the rest of my life. No. So all the time I'd spent training, I just was sitting on PubMed, trying to read anything that could regulate the inflammatory response. I started all sorts of biohacks. I found one of these, electrolyzed, water ionizers that Tyler mentioned. Actually, I talked to Tyler I think this was 2015, because I found the MHI, and I bought one of these machines for like $5,000, but I'd stacked so many biohacks and I was just going on my way. But about 9 months after that, I fainted in the gym a few times, and I developed multiple ulcers from the naproxen intake, which I had to abruptly stop. And within a few days of stopping the naproxen, all my joints froze again. Like I couldn't put on a shirt, I couldn't put on
so they was
socks.
keeping you moving, but it was drilling holes in your gut, which is a bit of a problem with naproxen.
What that meant is nothing I was doing was effective except the naproxen. So I scrambled and went back to PubMed, and I was reading. I found more studies on hydrogen, which kind of pissed me off because I had this $5,000, machine that wasn't helping. But it clicked, and I'm like, I mean, if hydrogen is like any other molecule, what's the proper dose? What do I need to be consuming? So I started buying the full studies with the materials and methods, and realized that not a single one of the clinical trials at the time was using a machine like I'd bought.
Right.
So I found the reagent, the H2 blue drops, and I tested them. It was undetectable. I had to triple the input. It was 0.03 parts per million. I started messaging, Tyler again.
Sorry.
And, basically, I went down this long road of, trying different forms of like using the magnesium, importing it from Eastern Europe and China, coming in as silver paint colorings and stuff like that, finding out it's heavily controlled. I'm just an extremely obsessive person, so I just kept on driving forward. I eventually got these tablets, and I was drinking like 4 of them a day, like 2 liters of water a day, and I was putting them in thermoses. I was getting about 3 ppm. Yeah. So I was getting about 6 milligrams of H2 a day. But they blew up in my fridge a couple times from the pressure buildup. And but anyways, within like a week and a half, all my joints loosened. So I was feeling something. But I just had some like sober second thoughts, being like, okay, well, I've formulated this, but I'm not a chemist. I don't know if there's any dangerous side reactions that are making. I'm dealing with metal and magnesium and hydrogen gas in my kitchen. I don't want to win a Darwin Award by blowing myself in my house.
You don't want to be that guy.
So I found my founding partner, who's a PhD chemist. He designs molecules for the pharmaceutical industry. He told me it was the worst pseudoscience he'd ever heard in his life to save my money. But he gave me all these reasons why hydrogen couldn't possibly have a physiological effect, and even if it did, why you'd want to inhale it rather than dissolve it in water. I'd read every paper on hydrogen at the time, so I rebutted everything he said with peer-reviewed evidence, and he said, I don't believe it, but this is actually really surprising. Sure, I'll take a look. And as he was looking through my formula and everything, I was just sending him new studies every day, and serendipitously, I sent him one on a certain disease model that he was a lead chemist developing molecules to try and target this disease. And he called me for lunch, and he said, listen, I had to, just trust the methods and conclusions of these other papers. I'm not a subject matter expert on them. He was like, but I am on this. And unless this is fraud, this stuff works, right? I wish my molecules worked this well.
Right.
And he said, are you sure you just want this as a do-it-yourself project? Like, we could commercialize this.
Can you say what the disease model was?
Hepatitis B.
Hep B. Wow, okay, I haven't heard that. All right, we'll come back to it.
So then it only took him a few weeks to refine the formula I had, and we were getting a great product, making 20 at a time in a mortar and pestle. Quickly realized that making millions at high speed is a completely different animal.
When you're dealing with an explosive gas,
everything like that. So it took a year, a few thousand iterative adjustments, and 15 failed scale-up attempts before we finally got the first production-ready tablet. When I finally got that going a year later, I didn't want to go into the supplement industry. I had very low respect for the supplement industry, but hydrogen, really the way it was even making sense to work back then, and much more so now, it is a supplement. It doesn't fit the drug definition, and I don't want to take it away from people who need it for like exercise and metabolic health and maintenance and all this stuff. So I just talked with my founding partner, and we decided if we're going to do it, we're going to almost treat it like a drug in terms of research, but better than how the drug industries do.
Yeah.
So I emailed every single first and corresponding author on every human trial of hydrogen at the time, offering free product, free placebo to donate to the research. I was talking to Tyler a bit more. He ended up using it in a study when he was finishing his master's, and made a lot of connections with a lot of other researchers, and that's kind of how we've gotten to where we are right now. With the tablets, I think we have 21 clinical trials when you count the disease state ones, 17 that are marketable.
Yeah.
It's more clinical trials than every other hydrogen water technology combined on the tablets.
So let's say that. So the other hydrogen water technologies Alex is referring to are there's machines, there's bottles. That's it, right? So there's bottles for drinkable hydrogen.
There's also
ready-to-drink.
ready-to-drink products.
And the ready-to-drink products kind of, I've always been a bit suspicious of those, so we can talk about those in a minute. Lately, there have been ready-to-drink products.
More coming too, yeah.
And I'm sure there's more. Well, because, the hydrogen train has finally arrived at the station. I mean, I was talking about hydrogen years ago when I first met Alex. I was so excited, but I was about that big as a podcast. And, I was talking to the 500 people I was talking to were all in, right? So we were all in. Would one of you guys just to frame the rest where we're going next, because I want to talk about what the possibilities and the potentials and what we're seeing in human health when we are able to get this hydrogen molecule and deliver it to the body in therapeutic doses. Which, as it turns out, and this is something that I think I heard you say a while ago, if you look at how much we're delivering to the body, the effect is far greater than the dose we're delivering. Like, you would think that to get the effects that we get therapeutically with molecular hydrogen, you'd be delivering like a ton. And it doesn't seem to take that much to produce a much greater effect. And you also said something earlier that I do want to go back to, is in a world where you have a perfect microbiome, which would be nobody, and you eat a perfect diet, which would be not too many people, you theoretically should produce enough hydrogen to meet your needs. But what we're seeing is in the world we live in now, very few people are in that world. And so what I'd love, one or both of you, take turns, I don't care. Can you give me a short list of what are the basic benefits, before we get into any disease states and any of that stuff, what are the basic benefits of people supplementing with molecular hydrogen? And you can give me a list for inhaled hydrogen and a list for drinking hydrogen.
So maybe I'll go at a low level first and talk about some of the benefits on the
But just give me a list first.
And then you can go a bit deeper.
So the list first, and then you can dive in.
Sure.
Rules of engagement.
So with the hydrogen tablets, we have 21 validated structure function claims with more coming. So that's legal to FTC and FDA standards to market within the US. We've shown improvements in metabolic health. For instance, we have shown to regulate cholesterol. We've shown to improve body composition in 6 clinical trials now in different groups.
Blood sugar.
Blood sugar, right? Improve hemoglobin, A1C, and blood sugar, triglycerides, improve inflammatory and antioxidant and oxidative stress markers. We have shown some brain benefits. We've shown to improve brain metabolism in multiple clinical trials in different models, such as sleep deprivation, the elderly, obese people. We've shown to regulate some hormones involved with hunger and satiety, such as ghrelin. We regulated ghrelin, which has a lot of important effects, neuroprotective, regulates insulin response, regulates glucose homeostasis. In a trial that I'm an author on that we're going to be presenting at Nutrition in Florida at the end of May, we showed to actually raise GLP-1 in an obese model.
Nice.
In addition to improving subjective hunger cravings, improving total cholesterol, lowering LDL and TC, and also improving sleep outcomes. So we've shown some benefits in the elderly. This is one of the coolest studies, I think, and it was 6-month double-blind placebo-controlled with a 70-plus population, average age 76, and it was basically recruited in the spring of 2020. So they were basically on house arrest, and terrified.
Weren't we all?
So in the placebo group, you saw an 11% reduction in telomere length, which is huge, but makes sense with that acute stress of COVID.
Yeah.
The hydrogen group saw a 4% increase
In telomeres.
in telomeres. We also improved DNA methylation. We doubled TET2, in the blood. If anyone listening knows the research on young blood, the vampire mouse research, where they take the blood of a young mouse and put it in an older mouse and it rejuvenates their skeletal tissue. So that's linked to TET2.
Yeah.
So the TET2 raise may have been why we also improved the sit-stand test. So at the end of this...
sit to stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the 6 months, the hydrogen group was more fit, despite them being an average age of 76.
And we're not being prescribed exercise or anything else.
They can't because they're on house arrest. It was early days of COVID. So there's tons of cool benefits.
Well, the committed still exercised, but still.
We have some trials on exercise performance as well. Actually, one that both Tyler and I are authors that are in press. This is in female high-level athletes in Russia, so like Olympic-level athletes. They improved body composition. They lost a little bit of fat and gained a little bit of muscle, which is massive for an elite-level athlete. It completely blunted the rise in creatine kinase, marker of muscle damage, and it improved peak torque, but more substantially after exercise. Peak torque and leg extension. Right, showing the anti-fatigue effect. Now, in another study, I was just in Milan presenting this one. It was in a completely opposite group. They were 50 plus with no adult exercise experience, exercise uninitiated. They started doctor-guided exercise protocols. The placebo group had borderline rhabdomyolysis. They were in deep trouble. They had a 700% increase in creatine kinase, an 1100% increase in myoglobin, dysregulated cortisol. The hydrogen group had no significant rise in either creatine kinase or myoglobin, regulated the cortisol response, showing better stress adaptation. In both the men and women, it raised free testosterone and DHEA, and in only the women, it improved sleep outcomes.
Only the women. Okay, we're going back to that.
Yeah, so we've been seeing some...
I lost count. I don't know if we're at 21 yet.
We also have some gut benefits, like in a trial of obese people, we lowered calprotectin, we improved some short-chain fatty acids like butyric acid, propionic acid.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
and gut health. Okay, and that's the thing. That's the finisher. And gut health.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, like you mentioned, like if you have a perfect diet, but throughout human evolution...
Well, what is a perfect diet?
Well, that's what I was going to say. We don't, right? we don't, and it's probably going to be independent. But even if a diet as high in fiber as you can get, you get a raw food vegan, maybe they're eating 60, 70, 80 grams of fiber a day. But we've stripped fiber from almost all our food sources for the last 10,000 years with horticulture. We go back throughout the majority
like
of human...
vegetables and fruit, right? Yeah, 100%.
We go back to the majority of human evolution, we were consuming 100 to 150 grams of dietary fiber a day.
Yeah, I challenge anybody listening to this podcast to try that for 3 days.
You're going to get really sick.
You're going to be really uncomfortable.
Yeah. So we can't even get the amount of fiber that we evolved to anticipate to make H2. And because bacteria is like any other living thing, if you deprive it of its fuel source, it dies.
Yeah.
Right.
So the microbiome's evolved away. All right, Tyler, here's your chance to give us can you give us a short list?
That was a long one. I actually wrote
that was a great list. Yeah. It was very long. So.
Yeah.
Or maybe a higher level list in terms of oxidative stress.
That's a great list because those are very specific benefits, and I helped to write those structure function claims, and there is a lot of really exciting research. Yeah. But the question is, how is that even possible? Yeah. How can it help with pretty much all of these things? Hydrogen's been shown to be a therapeutic in over 200 different animal and human disease models. There's over 200 clinical studies. How is it possible? Sounds like a panacea for everything. And it's possible when you understand the root cause of pretty much every disease goes to the fundamentals that molecular hydrogen can directly help with. And that's namely redox homeostasis, inflammatory response, mitochondrial energy production,
mitochondria,
and stress resilience.
Boom.
Those are the main points that hydrogen directly targets, and we can go through each one of them, that explains why hydrogen is able to help with so many different conditions.
Yeah, so it's a foundation, like we said it before, it's a foundational molecule. And I say this all the time, like, can we find the thing that is as far upstream as possible that we can help to rebalance that allows the body to then do its thing?
I'll let Tyler's better at telling this story than I am. But there's the hydrogen, hypothesis of the mitochondria. But if you go back to our last universal common ancestor, it actually consumed hydrogen as its fuel source from volcanic vents. So hydrogen was the first fuel source, the first organism that spawned all life on this planet. And then Tyler can explain how the eukaryotes came to be, which became our mitochondria, and why hydrogen was carried through there.
Yeah, so to anybody who's really been sleeping through all the podcasts, your mitochondria used to be bugs. and we've developed this incredibly symbiotic relationship. We couldn't live without them.
That's right, yeah. So. No, it's just, we talked about earlier, yeah, you have the archaea, right? And then you make eukaryotes. This is the endosymbiotic theory of
life,
right? So.
Yeah. I want to keep this on the what's in it for me theme, right, to the listeners. So you talked about redox.
Yeah.
So what is redox and why should people care about redox?
Yeah, so redox is simply that ratio between oxidative stress and antioxidants.
Yes.
Oxidation reduction, right? You have a battery, you have a negative electrode, positive electrode. That's how a battery works. You can't just, you have to have electrodes, and you can't just have one. You need both. You need opposites, right?
Yeah.
It's this yin and yang relationship.
Yeah, and so you just hit on something. So here's a pain point for people, right? We get told, oh, you need a lot of antioxidants. And then you turn around and somebody says to you, yeah, you need antioxidants, but you can't have too many antioxidants, because if you have too many antioxidants, you lose the benefit of reactive oxygen species, which are the oxidative stress, because those are signaling molecules, and we need those for the body to adapt and to grow and to evolve. So with molecular hydrogen, and this is the question that people always come in, I mean, I'm taking vitamin C, which is an antioxidant, and I'm using glutathione, which is kind of an antioxidant, and I'm eating all these fruits and vegetables that are antioxidants, and then I'm taking a whole bunch of other stuff that's antioxidants, and now you're telling me I need H2, but I just heard that I can't take too many antioxidants because then I'm just going to die. So and this is one of the things I love about hydrogen, right? And I'm going to let you take it away because you're the guy.
Yeah, it's a great concern, and you're absolutely right that oxidative stress is harmful, and so are too many antioxidants. And we typically think of hydrogen as an antioxidant, and therein lies the problem. It's not merely an antioxidant. It has antioxidant-like effects. Exercise is an antioxidant. Exercise is great, but how is that supposed to work? Does exercise scavenge free radicals? Like, that doesn't even make grammatical sense.
No.
But when you exercise, you change how the body works. You change, the amount of glutathione that's naturally in your body. Exercise can increase that, right? Hydrogen works the same way. So hydrogen is able to modulate or regulate the redox homeostasis, and most people are suffering from oxidative stress. So if it's able to improve it, just like exercise, then it's going to have an antioxidant effect.
Right.
But it's not giving you too many antioxidants. It's not just like a reductive stress.
It's not like an overpowering.
Yeah.
Is the term selective antioxidant an appropriate term to use when it comes to molecular hydrogen?
Yeah, I like that term. I like selective and I like unique. And the reason for both of them is, number one, selective is because there's a lot of free radicals out there. There's not just one.
Yeah.
There's many. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. And some of them, it really depends on the concentration as well. But typical antioxidants, they can scavenge or react with, neutralize all of the free radicals. They get rid of the bad ones really good. They're great at that. Vitamin C will react with all those bad free radicals. It's great. That's why we need it. Glutathione will do it too.
Yeah.
They will also react with all the good ones.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense that taking too many antioxidants can be harmful because you've pushed your body too far. We call that reductive stress.
Okay.
Hydrogen gas, let's think about this. So just break it down. If you imagine you put, say, vitamin C with every one of these free radicals, it neutralizes all of them.
Yeah.
If you put hydrogen gas in the same car in the same place with all these free radicals, it'll be friends with most of them. There won't be any reaction. It won't neutralize each other. Hydrogen is a very stable molecule that has a strong covalent bond. And so if you put a hydrogen gas with a nitric oxide, superoxide, hydrogen peroxide, they're friends. They just, chill, they're fine. But if you put it with the hydroxyl radical, that's the bad radical. That causes cell damage. There's nothing good about that radical. Mm-hmm. It just causes DNA damage and it's harmful. There's no signaling effects of a hydroxyl radical. Hydrogen gas could react with that one.
So it could, but it might not?
It could if they touch each other.
Okay, so they need to physically. So then.
The only reason they wouldn't is because they may not touch each other.
Right.
But my point is, hydrogen gas cannot react with the other beneficial free radicals.
And is that because of a bond strength?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm trying not to attribute a brain to a
I know,
gas.
it's almost like this innate
you know what
intelligence.
I mean? Right?
And the smallest molecule at that.
Which, there's no room for a brain. Like, let's be real, brains require cells. So I'm just trying to, for the audience, because, people are like, okay, yeah, that's a nice story, but how does it know?
Right.
It doesn't know anything. This is about, and this is probably getting too far in the biochemistry, which I don't want to do, because I will go down that rabbit hole with you, and then the three of us will be down there by ourselves, and everybody else will have left the room. So,
but it's simple. We just understand that the more reactive a free radical is, the more dangerous. The stronger, the more powerful, the more oxidizing a free radical is, the more harmful it is.
And that H2 molecule is more likely to react with that.
It can only react with the one that is the strongest molecule.
There we go. So that makes it selective.
That's what makes it selective. So that's the one key word, selective, because it will only go after the bad free radicals.
Therefore, as far as antioxidants go, hydrogen is definitely on the list of the safest and most beneficial, in the sense that you're not likely, and we'll talk about minimum effective dose and how much you can take in the whole 9 yards, but it's unlikely to get yourself to that place where
impossible. It's impossible. In fact, hydrogen gas also has another unique characteristic that it can actually, like I said, unique.
Yeah.
It can actually increase free radical production. That's a hormesis. That's
He's
a
making my
hormetic
brain
stressor.
hurt.
So we wrote a paper on this.
Okay.
One of the preclinicals we were talking about in conjunction with an approved drug. So it was on a colorectal cancer model in mice with fluorosil, 5-FU. And hydrogen on its own had some antioxidant-like effects. It lowered oxidative stress, increased antioxidants. The hydrogen and the 5-FU were similar in reducing tumor weight and size and collagen content.
Separately.
Yeah. But I think they both got down to 23 or 24% collagen content. But together, it basically obliterated the cancer. The collagen content was down to only about 6%, if memory serves. But we saw something really interesting. Within the cancer cell, hydrogen actually potentiated the stress response of the chemotherapeutic. So it completely blunted the antioxidant production and increased oxidative stress, which is what wiped out the tumor. But you might remember better. I think it was selectively only within the cancer.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So that was a mouse study.
Yeah,
so has yet to be reproduced in humans. And how did they administer the hydrogen in that case? Because they had a cancer drug, and they have hydrogen. So were the little mice chugging away on hydrogen?
Yeah,
water,
we administered it via oral gavage.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, oral gavage to get a specific dose, and they drink hydrogen water daily. And then we just added the drug into their drinking water.
That's wild. And so is that study going to move into human studies at some point in the near future?
Yeah, so what I'm actually doing right now, so now that the hydrogen tablets are protected with a new dietary ingredient status with the US FDA, with GRAS status.
Which, by the way, for those of you who don't know, GRAS is generally recognized as safe. So once a compound gets that designation, it means that, generally speaking, you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's not harmful.
So exactly. And the US has what's called a first to file system. Mm-hmm. If something is a drug first, it can never be a
It
supplement.
can never go back. Yeah.
But if it's a supplement first, it can be a drug also. Think caffeine. So caffeine's technically a drug, but we can buy it in energy drinks and supplements and everything like that because it was a food and a supplement first. So the hydrogen tablets, specifically the tablets, we've gotten approval as a dietary ingredient and a food.
Great.
So now we can explore pharmaceutical. But like I mentioned at the start, I don't think hydrogen fits the definition of a drug, because it actually perfectly fits the definition of a supplement. It's improving the structure and function of the body.
Yeah, it adds to
It's
supplement.
not having a direct pharmacological effect on a specific, it's not an antagonist or agonist of a specific receptor.
Right.
Or Tyler might disagree.
Okay,
But not generally.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
The definition of a drug is that it produces a study.
Is it what?
It produces a study.
Not the,
Produces a study.
So not the definition of a drug.
I'm just saying, because you didn't define
in
a certain
literature.
definition.
The definition of the drug by the FDA
Right,
is what I'm saying, not in the
Well, I mean, a
scientific
drug, the definition of a drug is amorphous, right? It's just,
So,
anyway, carry on.
what we have a half a dozen preclinical trials right now, some that are under peer review and being written, some that are published, showing these synergistic effects with approved drugs for various disease models. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be exploring taking the tablets as what's called a functional excipient for pharmaceuticals. So it wouldn't be approved as a drug, but it would show, we have to show in phase 1 and phase 2 trials that we're potentiating the effects of various approved pharmaceutical agents. Right. So we've been showing improved outcomes in the drug effect and reduced side effects. So it's a double whammy. So I think
Makes sense based on what you were just saying.
I think there's a real big future that we can be getting the tablets as a supplement for daily use, but people on certain drugs, various water-soluble ones in small doses for various outcomes that hydrogen can help with, we can improve those drugs, maybe even lower the dose, decrease side effects. And I wouldn't be doing that manufacturing, I'd just be licensing it to pharmaceutical companies.
Nice.
That would be able to improve the consumer results and experience of their drugs.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So you only got one deep. You had a list of 4.
I didn't go deep.
No, you only got to, elaborate on one.
I wanted to elaborate just a little bit more just on the unique property aspect of that.
Let's do it.
Just because hydrogen gas is not unidirectional. In other words, it does not only reduce oxidative stress, it brings things back to homeostasis.
Yeah,
So exactly, that's what it's a regulator.
it's about bringing things back to balance.
And it can do that because it can alter gene expression, for example, of our body's natural antioxidants, detoxification enzymes and things. So there's a lot of research. We published several articles on this.
So it acts on DNA to upregulate the production of beneficial molecules that we would produce
It doesn't
ourselves.
directly act on DNA, but activates transcription factors like NRF2, KEAP1 pathway.
Yeah.
And then this in turn causes the production of our body's natural antioxidants. And then if our body, which is quite smart, can regulate what our cells' natural redox homeostasis.
That's amazing.
So there's one deep.
That's 1. 2.
And then we also mentioned the inflammatory response.
Yes.
And it's the same story. Hydrogen gas, a lot of the studies show that hydrogen gas, yes, it can reduce inflammation. That's because there's a problem with chronic inflammation, and too much inflammation can be harmful. But of course, we need inflammation. Mm-hmm. That's what we have as part of our immune response, or from an infection to an injury or whatever, right? We need to have that
post-workout.
Post-workout, exactly. And if you blunt that, just like with elderly, when that is re-blunted, then you're sick longer, and it's harder for you. You don't recover as quick, and so on. So we need to have a rapid, acute, good inflammatory response. We just don't want a chronic inflammatory response the whole time. And hydrogen modulates that process. So we can actually see that if in the acute phase, hydrogen can potentiate an inflammatory response.
Wow.
And then quickly it brings it down.
Are you avoiding the dentist like it's a high school reunion? If your gums are receding, your enamel is thinning, your teeth are chipped, or feel more sensitive lately, that's your mouth saying it needs backup. Now, I recently learned about this incredible peptide product, and I just had to try it. Oral Tide Pro, a peptide-powered mouthwash that promotes gum regeneration, repairs enamel, and keeps inflammation in check. And I'm telling you guys, this is not a joke. I honestly didn't even know that gums could grow back or that chipped teeth could even sometimes regenerate. Then I heard from friends of mine who were able to skip the expensive dental surgery and heal their gum recession and sensitivity with this simple mouth rinse. This stuff is next level. ACDP peptides boost collagen in your gums. DRP peptides help remineralize enamel. It's fluoride-free, alcohol-free, made from food-grade ingredients, and has a 5% xylitol bonus for antimicrobial protection. Now, for best results, you want to use this product daily for 2 to 3 months. Whether you're in damage control mode or just want to future-proof your smile, you've got to check out Oral Tide Pro. And it comes to us from our friends at Profound Health. That's right. These are the guys that also sell Nature's Marvels bioregulators that you've heard me talk about ad nauseum. So all you got to do to get your hands on some of the stuff is go to profound-health.com and use code NAT15 for 15% off your first order. Now, in some areas of the world, you may have to pay a little extra for shipping, but guys, it's pennies compared to what dental surgery costs. Not to mention, it saves you from the agony of sensitive teeth and gums. And also, for best results, you're going to want to use this stuff for 2 to 3 months. So order 2 to 3 bottles and amortize that shipping cost. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. I have lost count of the number of people in my communities who rave about the benefits, and I myself am using it. It rocks.
So if I take hydrogen water after a workout, let's say, it's not going to do that thing as if I took a massive dose of anti-inflammatory that would completely negate my gains. The hydrogen is going to help me to recover better and faster because it's going to normalize things.
Exactly. So this is actually really cool, and I'm going to steal this from Tyler, and I'm doing it because I know he loves these studies.
Being stolen from?
There's some interesting studies. Neither of us were authors, but showing, say, rats in forced swim tests. Right.
Oh, I remember this study. I heard about this. Yeah.
Taking hydrogen as they're being forced to exhaustive exercise in the forced swim. And the hydrogen is actually acutely increasing the stress response. So it's potentiating the stress response of the exercise, but then it's driving back towards homeostasis faster. So it's as if you exercise harder and recovered quicker.
That's so cool. I love that. Okay. Inflammation. Is there anything else we need to know there, or are we moving on to number 3?
Just another part is that the inflammation pathway, there's so many pathways that contribute to inflammation, and many drugs like these anti-inflammatories, they work on one, COX enzyme or, just very specific ones. Hydrogen gas works on like all of them. And so it's able to modulate so many of them, which is why it's really nice way to modulate the inflammatory response. But again, it's not a potent drug, and so it's not like you're going to just suppress inflammation or just upregulate inflammation. Yeah. It's not like that. It's very safe because it's just kind of lightly touching all of these and trying to just bring things back to homeostasis.
Also, it's not going to drill holes in your gut like the naproxen you were taking. I've been to that movie where you're taking anaprox and you're like, oh, I had plantar fasciitis really badly. I got to the point where I couldn't even walk, right? Yeah. And this is way back. And they gave me anaprox. And I was like, it was magic. I was within 2 days. I was like, oh my God, I can walk again. And then within 2 weeks, I was doubled over in pain. So It was from my gut. Okay, onwards.
The mitochondria.
Okay, so mitochondria, everybody's talking about. Finally, mitochondria is getting its moment in the sunshine. It's the star of the show, as it should be and should have been. But let's talk about hydrogen and mitochondria.
Yes, if we understand the importance of the mitochondria, then we can understand that we need to have high functioning mitochondria, and the more of them, the merrier.
Yeah.
But a mitochondria, of course, when they get dysregulated, they are the primary producers of reactive oxygen species, for the better or for the worse. Yeah. As the mitochondria start not working as well, they produce an excessive amount of free radicals. Their ATP, or adenosine triphosphate production, for the energy currency of the cell, decreases. Yeah. And so if we could just have some way to rejuvenate the mitochondria, it'd be great. The problem is the mitochondria are inside the cells, and they're very difficult to target and get into. And so typical pharmacology is difficult to target the mitochondria because these mitochondria are very small and they have their own specific membranes to try to get inside and everything, right?
Yeah, no, they're protected within protection. I mean, you've got thousands of mitochondria in each cell, depending on the cell.
You have this,
So we're talking about the tiniest of tiny.
Yeah. And they're very well protected.
It's the most fascinating. If you guys, I would invite you, if you've never really dug into mitochondria, there's great videos on YouTube that are cartoons sort of. Spend 10 minutes and tell me that you're not in awe of the technology that lives in your cells. Like, it's wild.
It's really amazing. I mean, they have their own DNA and everything. So
hydrogen.
That's the benefit of hydrogen, though, is it is the smallest molecule. It is fully bioavailable, and it can actually penetrate the membranes of the cell and reach the mitochondria. And what we see is that it helps to rejuvenate and regenerate the mitochondria.
And is that by managing that NAD, NADPH? Like, there's a redox reaction in the mitochondria that's really critical.
It's upstream in that.
Yeah.
Because NAD plus and NADH and NADPH, all of those are largely regulated by the mitochondria itself.
Right.
And so hydrogen regulates the mitochondria, which in turn is regulating the NAD plus NADH ratio.
Also, it's not lost on us that there's an H in two of those.
Yes, that's right.
There are H's, and it's the one and the same H.
Yes, and because those NADH molecules, those are electron carriers.
Yeah.
And so the hydrogen inside of the bodies, that's basically carrying those electrons back and forth. But when we administer hydrogen gas, so the H2 molecule, it doesn't directly interact with like NAD plus or NADH or something. Like, some people think, well, yeah, but if I have NAD plus and I get H2, then I'm going to convert NAD plus to NADH.
And I'm going to imbalance.
And cause imbalance or reductive stress.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way because hydrogen gas does not react with things like NAD plus. In fact, it can only react with the most toxic, harmful free radical.
Okay, so that's why you're saying it's more upstream. It's helping the mitochondria.
Yeah.
But this is what we're talking about, right? How can we help the body to do what it does best so then it can regulate its own reductive cycles,
the whole redox
whatever
homeostasis, exactly.
Yeah.
So by targeting the mitochondria, and then, as the upstream part, is able to upregulate or improve the NAD plus NADH ratio, the NADPH, as well, and all these other pathways that stem from that.
What this means to you guys is you have more energy and you feel better. Just for the uninitiated at the end of the day.
Well, all the claims, the structure function claims that Alex mentioned earlier, and all the diseases that we've talked about that are out there, this is the mechanism. These are the mechanisms for why hydrogen is able to provide these benefits. So we talked about redox homeostasis, the inflammatory response, mitochondrial energy production.
And there was a fourth.
Just the resilience to stress.
Resilience to stress.
Yeah, and that's kind of a miscellaneous category.
Put everything else in there.
Yeah, because hydrogen is able to help with things like autophagy, for example, upregulate or downregulate autophagy depending on the needs of the cell. There's so many different areas, modulating gene expression and microRNAs, and the list goes on.
So are we talking about also the hallmarks of aging?
Oh, yes.
Because you talked about telomeres. You did talk about telomeres, did you not? Yeah, so telomere attrition is one of the 12 hallmarks of aging. You just talked about DNA damage, which is one of the hallmarks of aging. Cellular communication?
Yeah.
Ish? Yeah.
100%.
So there's some more research on extending health or lifespan and
Healthspan?
Not in humans, but with hydrogen gas. So hydrogen has extended lifespan of fruit flies and nematode worms.
Yeah.
In mice, it dramatically extended health span. So if you look at the control group, they're scattered all over the place, which you'd expect, like say a human dying anywhere from 60 to 110.
Yeah.
But in the hydrogen group, they're all packed at the maximum
interesting.
lifespan.
So it neutralizes a lot of the...
And these mice in this study didn't develop any neurological diseases, throughout their entire life that were taking hydrogen, even when they started in middle age, right?
So it's not too late.
So then there's another cool study that Tyler, and this is an observational study, but Tyler might want to talk more after, but they looked at centenarians in Okinawa and found that these centenarians had higher breath hydrogen than the average young person. And we know that as we age, hydrogen in our breath drops and methane rises. And we know as methane rises, it's basically correlated with every disease outcome.
Right.
So somehow...
So it's not causative, there's a relationship.
Correlation.
Yeah.
So somehow these centenarians in Okinawa, maybe diet, something like this, microbiome, they have carried and have higher breath hydrogen than the average young person.
Right. That's really interesting. Okay, so, we could keep going like this for a really long time, but so I want to get into different modes of administration. The first thing I want to say to people is when you're using the open cup tablets, and this is one of the big myths about hydrogen tablets, that's not the hydrogen. It's the chemical reaction that happens in the water with those components that produces the hydrogen molecule. And also you're getting elemental magnesium in there, which is the gray sludge on top. It's good for you. Drink it. Trust me. Can we talk a little, there's so many things I want to talk about, but really quickly, just the differences between drinking the hydrogen and inhaling the hydrogen, because those are going to be the two main methods of administration. You can soak in a bath of hydrogen as well, and there are tablets that are available for that. And I know that Robert Slovak talked about this in a podcast years ago with Ben Greenfield, where he broke his feet or something and soaked them in hydrogen bath.
I have a case study on myself too, where I did the same thing with a broken toe from kickboxing, and published the case study on myself, and I had pretty miraculous recovery. We have another case study on a grade 2 ankle tear in a pro soccer player that showed really strong recovery, which got us to do a controlled trial head-to-head against RICE protocol, rest, ice, compress, elevate. It was a small group of pro soccer players. They were equivalent, but I think if it was something like 3 or 4 more people were recruited, hydrogen would have been significantly more effective than RICE protocol, which is the standard treatment.
So soaking in hydrogen.
So there were strong trends in, reduction in pain, reduction in circumference.
You mean swelling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mobility.
Which will go with the swelling.
Reduced inflammatory markers.
Okay. I'm rushing you because I want to make sure we hit all the different marks. So let's go back to the inhaled versus... this is more Tyler's expertise, but quick, hydrogen water, drinking it, hydrogen bathing, and hydrogen inhalation all saturate different tissues to different ways. They have different pharmacokinetics. They enter our body in different ways. So for one model, you might want to use inhalation. For another, you might want to drink. Drinking it interacts with our microbiome better, gets into our liver better, things like this. Probably drives our metabolism better. Inhaling obviously gets to our lungs better, gets to our skeletal tissue, our muscles better, but bathing might actually get to our muscles better than inhaling. Inhaling gets to our brain higher than hydrogen water. Hydrogen water still raises in the brain quite a bit, but also hydrogen water, by regulating ghrelin, which has a lot of neuroprotective effects, has a second layer of potential. So I think in the future, we're going to be doing all of them. Yeah, they're all valid. Because I'll just give a very quick anecdote of N of 1, where I had a client who had Parkinson's disease years ago. And that was back in the day when I was so big on hydrogen. I hadn't discovered peptides or bioregulators or any of the things yet. I had recommended, I'd put her on a more keto diet to see if that would help her brain at all. And I got her drinking molecular hydrogen tablets. Not the tablets, the water. And after about 2 weeks, she called me up and she said, "This is the craziest thing, but I wake up in the morning and I crave the hydrogen." And she noticed a distinct, she felt that she had better mental energy when she used molecular hydrogen. It didn't extend for the whole day necessarily, because in her case, she was pretty far down the path. It didn't fix her Parkinson's, it didn't reverse it, but she felt that it could have been placebo, I don't know, but she definitely felt a difference when she was consuming the molecular hydrogen water from the tablets. Is that possible? And I had recommended it to her because of the Parkinsonian mouse. I'm like, I don't know, let's give it a try. Yeah. Let's see if it can help at all.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. And the mouse study was, is in rats, and there's a couple studies that were done on this. But in this specific one we were talking about earlier, they injected 6-hydroxydopamine, which damages the substantia nigra, which causes
so induces Parkinson's.
It's one of the models of Parkinson's disease. But the rats that drank hydrogen water essentially never developed Parkinson's disease. They just prevented that from happening.
So did it do that by protecting the substantia nigra?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because normally you cause inflammation, oxidative stress, all these things we talked about earlier. It kind of prevented that from happening and allowed the body to kind of heal and be better. So it's very powerful. And then there's some human studies that have happened as well, and those ones indicate that it's possible that hydrogen water really could be beneficial to Parkinson's disease. There was a larger one that's about a year or so longer, about 100 subjects or so. And when you do basically a sub-analysis of everything, it also could be used to indicate that hydrogen water could probably be effective as well for Parkinson's disease.
So it's possible in her case that she was actually experiencing a benefit.
There could be some
from
placebo effect as well, like you said, right? But they're not mutually exclusive.
Well, and I didn't oversell it. I try not to do that, but I definitely said this might be helpful. Try that.
Yeah, it's safe. Yeah. So to Alex's point, what he said was fine. But I think it is important then to remember it's not which one is better than the other.
They're different.
They're different, and we actually can see that there's certain changes in gene expression in different areas that are influenced by one and not the other.
Interesting.
And there can be synergistic effects as well.
Okay, and so can you is there a little cheat sheet of in general if we're dealing with, let's say, so you said for brain, it seems that inhalation is probably may have an edge, but both, because with TBIs, you were working with a lot of martial artists, or was it martial artists, or basically people who get kicked in the head a lot. So I can't remember exactly what it was.
We have
MMA guys, that's what it was.
We have a case study on concussion recovery that was promising. We have a rat study that was done at Stony Brook, which was a post-stroke that showed hydrogen was complementary or potentially synergistic with minocycline for post-stroke recovery. They have been recruiting at Stony Brook, trying to do a big 100-person post-stroke study.
At Stony Brook in Toronto?
Stony Brook.
Oh, Stony Brook.
In New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Stony Brook, really?
6 or 7 years, but recruiting clinical trials in the United States is incredibly slow because people are not compliant.
So how would because I've always said to people in my world, who've had some kind of a brain event, you know what, this isn't going to fix necessarily, but this may be helpful. And also with the brain, is there a piece of it that in the anti-inflammatory piece, because you get a lot of inflammation in the brain?
Yeah, that's probably a big part, and I think some of these studies he's talking about, those are actually hydrogen water.
Yeah.
So that's drinking the open cup.
That's drinking hydrogen water.
Well, I was. Those are in the tablets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it is interesting because you do get a lot more hydrogen gas from inhalation that goes to the brain, but you get different benefits from drinking hydrogen water, such as Alex mentioned about gastric ghrelin secretion, and ghrelin can benefit the brain as well, which you may not get as much when you're inhaling hydrogen gas. That's why doing both of them, you can maybe get an ultimate, right? So it's difficult to really say this is going to be more effective for this. There's some ways to look at it. For example, there's some scenarios where inhalation is the only route, like if you're in a comatose patients, for example.
Yeah, hard to get them to chug the water.
Sometimes in clinical studies, that's what they're used. Post-cardiac arrest syndrome, this type of emergency medicine. This is where inhalation is pretty much the only route that's possible.
So you just throw a cannula on the person.
Yeah, typically in the clinical studies, we will use a face mask because we have to ensure that every breath they're inhaling contains a therapeutic dose of hydrogen that doesn't get diluted by these bigger breaths or different size of individuals and everything, right? And so we use a face mask that has a regulated amount of hydrogen gas that's being administered. And but the inhalation, of course, it can be very effective, but it's not necessarily more effective than hydrogen water. But in some cases, it may be, right? And in other cases, hydrogen water may be more effective. But again, they both can work hand in hand.
Great. I use my hydrogen when I'm on planes. Like that, it's my non-negotiable. It's something I started way back in the day when I first met you. Was there a piece about hydrogen and radiation you're exposed to at altitude that are?
Yeah, that's just the radioprotective effects of hydrogen in general are quite well known. Some of the earliest research that had been done, and some of my PhD research, we actually looked at the protective effects of hydrogen water for, we did irradiation of the myocardium, of the heart tissue in rats, and we found that hydrogen was quite protective, regulating microRNAs, a number of things, antioxidant effects and things. Okay. So yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the ideas that, hey, if you're going up in altitude, you have a high exposure to radiation, maybe taking some extra molecular hydrogen to protect the cells could be beneficial.
Weirdly, I have found, like, my feet used to swell really badly on planes, and I find that if I'm diligent with my hydrogen somehow, maybe it's in my head, I don't know, it's not a thing. Like, I no longer get into that situation where my feet are too big for my shoes all of a sudden, which is really unpleasant, quite apart from anything else. Okay, so we've talked about the tablets quite a lot. The open cup tablets have been around for a really long time. They're widely available. You guys can go back we'll list the episodes I recorded with Alex before. We go into those quite extensively. We'll put some links of where you can buy them, the whole 9 yards. I want to get into the inhalation piece. Well, there's two other things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the market is flooded with these bottles. I don't know that we're going to have time to get into the like the bottle of molecular hydrogen water you can buy at the store.
The ready to drink.
The ready to drink. I'm not a huge fan. I have never really believed.
Yeah, it's a real simple conversation. You just have to be skeptical. But there are products that have decent concentrations, therapeutic doses of hydrogen that are in ready to drink. They are more expensive, obviously, but they're available. You should make sure they have some sort of certification, like from IHSA, or they're part of the industry association or something. These are just ways to ensure that you
Perfect.
get a
And if
dose.
once you open it, you want to check it.
Yeah, just like the tablets.
Okay. Because I want to get to the bottles, and then I want to get to the inhalation machines, of which there are several. So I had spoken to one of you about the bottles recently, and I think it may have been you who told me the challenge is the electrodes at the bottom of the bottle, they lose their integrity after a period of time, and you're just not getting enough hydrogen. Or maybe it was you.
The gaskets start leaking, so they're not pressurizing.
Right, so because when I do own one of the bottles, not one of the well-known ones, it's actually one that's not on the market yet, and when I go to open it, it's hard to open, and there's a little pfft.
That's probably a good sign.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign. I was afraid on the plane. I'm like, what if it over pressurizes?
Yeah, just in general with the bottles, that can be a great way to get molecular hydrogen. But there are always drawbacks. Some bottles, of course, they're not going to be great. They may not even provide you therapeutic doses of hydrogen.
So what's a therapeutic dose, just before you go on?
A minimum of 0.5 milligrams of hydrogen.
Per drink?
No, just per day. So it's hard because we're talking about dose, not concentration.
Right, okay.
That's where the confusion comes in. So if you have a bottle that gives you, say, 1 milligram per liter, and the bottle is only 250 milliliters, then you're only going to get like
0.25.
Yeah, 0.25 milligrams. And if you only drink one bottle a day, then it may not be therapeutic.
And what's a therapeutic dose? And I know it's going to vary if you're dealing with someone in a disease state.
We just say half a milligram.
Half a milligram a day is your base
baseline
amount.
to potentially have benefits. It's possible even lower doses, but when we just look at the clinical research, that's been pretty much the lowest dose that has been shown to exert some benefits. And then, as maybe Alex mentioned earlier, but there are a number of studies showing that a dose-dependent effects. So that's kind of the minimum.
And based on your size too, right?
If it doesn't have if you're not getting at least that much, you might be wasting your money.
Okay. All right. So that's on the bottles.
And then, there's gonna, I think there's trends showing, obviously there's trends showing that the dose and concentration dependent response and duration dependent response in various models. It also might appear that certain organs might need a lot higher dose than others.
Right.
Like the liver, it seems, we're only starting to see benefits when we really scale up to a higher
What about
dose.
the brain? Like it's so rich in mitochondria, you would think.
It is. But again, you have the second messenger systems as well. Because like when you drink hydrogen water, you don't get a super high concentration of hydrogen in the brain directly, right?
But there's that communication.
Yeah, you get these communications going on, right? So there's a lot of variables that are going on. So we can talk about specifics, but when we talk about such deep specifics, we're going to lose the audience.
No, let's not go there.
So we'll say, because everyone talks about concentration, like the best bottles on the market might get 5 milligrams a liter, 5 parts per million, 250 milliliters. So that's 1.25 milligrams of H2, right? Which is going to be therapeutic. Now, if it's going to get to all the organs and have them peak therapeutic effect, probably not. The tablets in 500 milliliters of water get 12 parts per million, right? So that's 6 milligrams. So that's a 5 times higher dose.
Yeah.
Right? Now, as the bottles start deteriorating, sometimes within a few uses, sometimes at least within a
depending
couple
on
months,
the bottle.
depending on the bottle, that 5 ppm might drop to 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 parts per million. So now all of a sudden you're getting 0.15 or 0.2 milligrams of H2, which is no longer therapeutic.
Right.
And the tablet is now getting 30 plus times more hydrogen.
Okay, so the last thing I want to say about the tablet, or I want you to elaborate on the tablet before we go to the machines, because this is going to be the marathon podcast, which I knew it was going to be, but that's okay. The tablets, 12 parts per million, there is how much water do I dissolve it in, and how fast do I need to get this thing down? Because hydrogen's very volatile.
So optimally, you want 500 milliliters. Right.
So half a liter.
So 16.89 ounces for.
Yeah. So that's 2 cups of water. For one tablet.
Some of our studies will, for one tablet. Now, some of our studies will use only 250 milliliters or 330 milliliters, and the concentration goes up, but the dose goes down. Right. That's where it gets a little bit complicated. So I would say that the perfect volume of water is the amount that you can chug down within a few seconds. So I actually put multiple tablets in 1 liter and do it first thing in the morning, because I can chug a liter first thing in the morning. But in our elderly study, it was 250 milliliters.
Yeah.
In most of our middle-aged, like metabolically impaired, it's 330 milliliters.
Yeah, because that's as much as you get. Like you want to drink it down almost in one shot.
How the tablets are getting this high concentration is by creating very small nanobubbles. So the nanobubbles are only kind of quasi-dissolved. Basically, they have different physics when you go below 5 microns in size. That's why the water turns white. It's that white cloud.
And that's when you want to drink it, right?
You want to drink it, you chug it right down, because it might hit, the 12 ppm as soon as it finishes at the surface. 6 minutes later, it's down to the 1.6, which is the saturation point of hydrogen in water at safety.
So just for the audience, when you drop that little tablet in the water, it's going to start fizzing from the bottom aggressively. And eventually, as it breaks down, it's going to start making its way up to the top. And pretty much once it's up there, like I sit there and I'm watching it, and as soon as it starts to break up,
at the top,
I start chugging. It's a thing, but it's worth it.
We've tested that with gas chromatography, and that is the best way to do it. Because when we do clinical studies, we wanted to ensure the best protocol for administration. That's one of the drawbacks of the tablets. You need
to be on it.
You need to drink it as soon as you make it. So you don't want to do 500 milliliters unless you can chug that much. Do 250 milliliters, for example.
Yeah.
And that's
I'll get distracted sometimes. Like it's happened to me a couple of times where you're making your hydrogen water and you get called away, your phone rings, or you do that stupid thing, you're scrolling on Instagram, and then all of a sudden you look over and your water is clear. And you're like,
now,
God, I wasted it.
You're still getting 1.6 ppm, so you'd be getting 0.8 milligrams
right.
of H2 in that half liter. So it is still therapeutic.
So that's one of the benefits, though, at the same time. Even if you do end up waiting for 10, 20 minutes, you're still getting the 1.6,
which is still a pretty decent dose.
And that's one of the so going to the bottles. If you do get like a 5 milligram per liter from the bottle, then that 5 milligrams is going to be a lot more stable because that gas is fully dissolved in the water.
Yeah, and it's in there.
It's in there.
And I still chug my
you should still drink it fast, but I mean you can
and it's
wait
not a lot actually. The bottles are actually quite small.
Like 250 milliliters or something. So
okay, let's go to the machines. Let's get to inhalation machines because there's a number of them on the market. They're an investment, for sure. Yeah. Let's talk about machines and what's out there and the landscape. You have a machine coming out that you guys have spent 7 years developing, which is a really long time for two people who are subject matter experts. So I'm curious to know, if you spend 7 years developing a machine and there's already machines out there, there's got to be a gap somewhere. So help us understand.
So what you have to consider for myself as a company, right? And I think ethically too, is it safe and is it effective, right? And the current machines on the market there's a lot of them that they're usually safe, but there are instances where it could be explosive.
Okay.
Right? And that's a risk I'm not willing to take.
Right.
Right?
Like even if it's teeny tiny.
Even if it's a tiny risk.
Okay.
It's something I'm not willing to take. And it's something actually that IRBs, ethic committees of Western universities are not willing to take that risk either.
So they don't have the machines on site.
Yeah, they're not doing clinical trials in the Western world with these machines because of this small chance of risk.
Okay.
So I'm on the same page as there. Now, the other is effectiveness. And a lot of these machines are ineffective, not because they're not delivering a lot of hydrogen, but because it's not actually getting into your system properly. So we have spent the 7 years figuring out all the kinks to make this machine that is both safe, it cannot explode under any condition, and it's effective. Every breath you take is a therapeutic breath of the controlled amount. So Tyler can talk a bit more about, minute ventilation.
Well, even the mental exercise of getting you involved with a thing, because that's been your hallmark. Yeah. All these years I'm Tyler LeBaron, I'm just talking about hydrogen. I'm not affiliated with anything. So something must have moved you to the space where you're willing to tie yourself to a product.
Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable.
He's kind of squirming for those of you who can't see.
But the fact is, as I have been doing research and things since 2009, inhalation over and over again is coming up as an important aspect. And we want to use research in the clinical studies. And when I did my PhD, we also used hydrogen gas as a gas, not in water as well. And we did heart transplants in adult pigs. And we administered hydrogen gas with the anesthesia. But again, we needed to provide a controlled therapeutic dose of hydrogen. And so we used a tank of mixed gas. We were able to get a company and they were able to do a medical gas. We had like 2.3% hydrogen gas, 21% oxygen gas, right, and the balanced nitrogen. And then we have to use this, so this way we can ensure that it's therapeutic and we can ensure that it's not gonna blow the lab up.
Yeah,
those are two important things. And all the devices on the market, the inhalation devices, as Alex mentioned, the biggest drawback is that in order to ensure that every breath is therapeutic, you need to have a pretty high flow rate. Ideally, it depends on how you breathe. I mean, you can be therapeutic with as low as 200, 300 milliliters per minute if you're breathing slow. But to really ensure that you're getting a therapeutic dose, you may need to be 600 milliliters per minute or even higher. I mean, now some units are as high as 2 liters per minute of hydrogen gas. And that's pretty high, and you're going to get a therapeutic dose, and there's going to be benefits from that. But problem with that in the research is that every breath that you take is going to have a different concentration of hydrogen, because as you're inhaling, you inhale, let's say, around 500 milliliters of air per second. So when you take a breath, that's 500 milliliters of air that you took in, and that's per second. And so these machines are providing anywhere between 3 to 30 milliliters of hydrogen gas per second as well. So if you just take that number, divide it by 500, right, now it's going to give you about the percentage of how much hydrogen gas you're getting in that breath. Right. Just some basic math and things. And you can see that by inhaling from a machine, you can get anywhere from below the therapeutic level, like below 1%, or high, over 10%.
Right.
And in the research we have found, many different groups have found this, that unless you're getting 1% hydrogen gas, it won't be therapeutic.
Right.
So that's a minimum dose, is 1%. We have to somehow translate the concentration and percentage of like 1% and higher to flow rate. And as I said, to get 1% hydrogen gas, depending on how you're breathing, you need between 200 milliliters per minute to 2,000 milliliters per minute.
Wow.
Or possibly even more, up to, in extreme cases, you could calculate up to 5 liters per minute of hydrogen gas.
Right.
The variability is very
So
wide.
none of us is liking the math right now. I'm getting lost. All I know is I'm starting to understand why it took 7 years.
Right. There was a lot of,
a lot of variables you're trying to account for and manage and balance out.
And again, so that, for me, then that says, okay, we want to have a higher flow rate to ensure a therapeutic dose of hydrogen with every breath.
Yeah.
But then that runs into the other problem of increasing risk of flammability.
Right.
Right. If pure hydrogen gas is not flammable because there's no oxygen there, but as soon as that is,
you're mixing it.
Exactly. As soon as it's mixed into air, maybe if you're during your exhalation, you're exhaling constant hydrogen concentration that is higher than 4.6%, that becomes explosive. If people who have candles, or maybe you're in a smaller room that's not well ventilated, the concentration of hydrogen gas builds up. Static electricity can ignite the hydrogen gas. All these concerns that, again, are not going to happen all the time, but they can happen, and they do happen.
Right.
And a lot of these units that make very high levels of hydrogen gas, they use oxyhydrogen. So now you have hydrogen gas and oxygen combined. And that's the perfect stoichiometry of the most explosive mixture, because you have, right, two-thirds hydrogen and 1/3 oxygen, and you make water.
And all you need is a spark.
All you need is a spark, right? The activation energy for that reaction is very high. So point is in order to ensure a therapeutic dose, you want higher flow rates of hydrogen gas. But the higher you go, the more dangerous. Right. And specifically as well, there's the potential, as Alex said, there's the potential to purposefully misuse the product. You can take these machines, and I don't recommend this, and not that I've done it many times because it's fun, but you can take these high flow rate machines and you can fill up plastic bags, and you can then, in a sophisticated way, light them on fire, and it makes it for a fantastic explosion that can damage your eardrums.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't anybody do that. Okay, so your machine, the machine that you're coming to market with,
circumvents all those problems.
So so you guys know, Alex has to be on stage really soon, so we're going to plow through the rest of this.
Yeah. and then I have to speak right after that.
And he has to speak right after. So.
But so all that is the background to say that this machine makes it so that you can get, with every breath of air you take, is therapeutic. There's 3 things. Every breath is therapeutic. Every breath is at the desired concentration of hydrogen, between 1 to 4%. And every breath and everything about the machine is not flammable. You cannot misuse it.
Yes.
And another added benefit for consumers, because we figured out how to do this perfectly efficiently. And Tyler demonstrated how these other machines are not efficient. So because they're not efficient, they become more and more powerful. Now, the membranes, to make them more powerful, are the most expensive component, which is why our machine is more effective, it's safe.
And cost effective.
And it's cheaper.
Cost effective.
Cost effective.
We don't say cheaper.
Okay. It's more cost.
There you go.
Yeah.
You've built efficiencies into the whole thing.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, so to finish up, for people listening, if let's say they have tablets, can we overdo tablets? What's the maximum number of tablets you can take in a day? Is there a maximum? I mean, on paper, maybe not so much, but do you recommend that people have a minimum effective dose and then go up to a certain amount?
The clinical trials, we range from 1 to 3 a day, up to 4. I take 5 or 6, but I have a lot of damage and I'm a bigger guy. I find after 5 or 6, I stop noticing more benefits. We haven't found an upper limit of where hydrogen becomes dangerous, and harmful.
Hence the grass status.
We do know that you can get too much magnesium. So there's 80 milligrams of magnesium a tablet. The RDA is 420.
So just send you running to the bathroom.
Tyler will talk like you think probably the ideal dose of magnesium was maybe 700 milligrams a day.
That's a lot of tablets.
No, not all from tablets. You should try to get it all from
in general.
Food. I'm just saying most of it should be from food, but you can supplement, with a few hundred or something.
Yeah. Is there anybody who should not use hydrogen tablets, in your opinion? Or do you know of a use case scenario where it would be I mean, it sounds to me like we said that the F word over and over again, foundational. Is there a use case where hydrogen might be not such a great idea, or is it generally?
There are only conjecture-wise potential situations, but there's no evidence for that. So, for example, if somebody has an H. pylori infection, well, H. pylori as a bacterium actually consumes hydrogen gas as an energy source.
So you might need
to correct that imbalance. So logically, you're thinking, oh, if I drink hydrogen water, I'm going to feed H. pylori, and that can be problematic, so let's get rid of this first. There's no evidence for that. And there's anecdotal evidence to the opposite. One of the researchers in Japan was telling me he was having a conversation with another doctor, and the doctor told his patient, well, try hydrogen water, not realizing that H. pylori feeds on hydrogen. They tried hydrogen water, H. pylori went away.
But you see, this goes back to the earlier conversation where hydrogen is homeostatic, like it's looking to achieve balance.
If you're improving the immune system, if you're improving the microbiome, all of a sudden maybe there's a mechanism to help get rid of the H. pylori. So that's what I'm saying. I can think of certain scenarios
where theoretically it might,
right, but there's no evidence for that, and there's anecdotal statements of the opposite happening, and so you have to weigh everything.
And for the machine, so how long? Because if you're breathing in hydrogen from a machine, that means you're going to be in place for a period of time. How long do you need? How long? Again, what's the minimum effective dose? I have a feeling there's not going to be. You can just sit there and. If you're at your desk, just breathe away. But
I'd say at least 30 minutes
a day,
and target 1 to 2 hours if you can
in the day. Okay, so you could do it while you're sitting at your desk doing your work.
Yeah, some of the clinical studies will go as long as 18 hours.
So this is bedridden people who
post-cardiac arrest syndrome. That does not mean that's the most effective. It's possible that even 1 hour could be more effective.
Do better. They could do as well with less.
There's specific reasons why it was so long and things. So the reason why I recommend 20-30 minutes as a minimum is because it takes about that long to reach equilibrium of the concentration of hydrogen gas to get into the cells. And you're probably targeting from 1 to 2, 3 hours or something is probably good, but you're free to do whatever you want and try it and see
how you feel.
Mechanism, but I think with those guidelines, minimum 20-30 minutes, and see it, try it. There are people who, Ben Greenfield just said that he tried the machine and slept
the last 3 days in a row. So he got his machine and he said he's been taking his afternoon nap with the machine and feeling great.
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to getting my machine and trying it out too. And I think that's the thing. Like, it would be interesting to see if, let's say, you do a loading period, and then after a period of time, you can do less or not,
or the other way around,
right. Build up. Keep building until. Anyway, this is fascinating. Like I said at the beginning, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've been a big fan of hydrogen for a long time. I didn't always know why, but I definitely am still. So, in the interest of time and getting both of you guys on stage and not having the event organizer unhappy with me, why don't we tell people where they can find more information about you guys, how they can buy a machine. We're going to put all this in the show notes, obviously, and all that.
Yeah, so for me, I have a personal website, alextarnava.com. I've got my Instagram on my website. It shows a lot of the media I've done. It links to my ResearchGate, which isn't nearly as robust as Tyler's, but I have published a bunch of papers. I give away my first book for free on the website, and the next 6 that are going to be coming over the few years, they'll all be for free. I think knowledge should be freely accessible, so I don't want to profit off that. It's mostly for me.
And for the machine?
Inhale-H2.
Inhale-H2.com?
Yeah.
And then we'll have a code NAT that will be alive that'll help you to make it even more cost efficient for you. And Tyler?
Yeah, so for me, if you find me on social media, Tyler W. LeBaron, Instagram, Facebook, or I think Facebook is just Tyler LeBaron, but I post hydrogen things as well as other things that I'm doing out and about. That's interesting. Surprisingly.
And then the Molecular Hydrogen Institute.
And then really, if you just focus on this, H2MHI is the social media handle for Molecular Hydrogen Institute, and then of course the website molecularhydrogeninstitute.org. Check out our education, our certification program. Specifically, if you have any interest in any of this stuff, join our community. This is what we're really trying to get growing. And because the community, we have a whole resource library with a bunch of exclusive content for people who are part of there. We have other videos from other researchers that are talking about things. I do a monthly Q&A where people ask, pretty much ask me anything, and people put their questions to the whole community and things. So that's a really exciting place. It's only $7 a month, but we're really trying to grow that. And then, so follow us and check out our...
And check it out, dive in.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you guys, this has been fantastic. I've thoroughly enjoyed this time. I hope we didn't lose too many people along the way, but it's a fascinating topic. So thank you so much, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
It's been great.